Okay, this February 19th, 2020 meeting of the Oyster River Cooperative School Board will come to order. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda, and I would like to just make one addition. I believe that you've all been sent a draft of a possible letter that might go out explaining the bond, how the bond will be paid out over 5 years, and so that letter, is that in the folder, or is that? It's in the folder, okay. And I have some extra copies that if people would like to have them. So I'd like to have that be an action to either authorize or not authorize that letter. So if that's agreeable. So with that addition, could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Denise?
I'll motion to approve the agenda.
Moved by Denise, second by Brian. All in favor? 7 in favor. The agenda is approved as amended. Public comment? I have 3 minutes. Okay.
Sign in. I'm Darren Keller, Lee. So I've got a couple comments, but I've also got some questions I'm hoping maybe somebody can clarify. First one is, started looking at schools and other building projects, and I'm quite shocked that we don't even, from what I can tell, we're not getting any aid from anybody, either federal or state. At least trying to do some scrabbling around. I found something referencing 21-22 in New Hampshire, 14.7 million in aid with the state on the website. I couldn't find any more backstory. Can anybody tell me anything about what that is? I'd be curious to see if that's applicable to the bond or whatever. I'd like clarification on that. During, I believe it was so the second question I have is, during the bond hearing, Todd Allen had referenced 900 square feet as a recommended size. So once again, let my fingers do the walking on the web, try to figure out, and it's not clear to me. I've seen numbers all over the place on what's the recommended class size. Our district has a policy of 22 or less kids, so I didn't know if we scaled that down accordingly because, you know, there's recommended guidelines depending on which study you read, up between less than 25 and 24 to 27. So I'd like to get clarification on where that 900 square feet came from, if you have the source or whatever, because I've seen down to 650, 700 square feet up to over 1,000 square feet. I don't know, is it total building size? Is it the classroom size? I'll be quite frank, I can't tell you which one it is. And after quite a bit of research on it, so I'm somewhat confused. Third one is the comment. I just want it to be on record. The way the board has done this, the way voters are going to be, in a lot of discussion, there's obviously a lot of division in the community. And the 7 cents, at least for the mill rate, I know Mr. Morris, you've been in front of the Lee selectmen. And then kind of a little bit of reality is hitting home because it starts out at a very low rate, but by 5 years, at least in what's publicized, is over $2 increase in the mill rate. So I think it's very misleading for voters when they go to the ballot box. Not everybody spends as much time. They go and maybe they are on the fence. The way I think the numbers are presented, it might say 49 point whatever million that we're paying for this. And when they're seeing that 7 cent rate, I do believe there will be some voters who are duped into thinking, hey, somehow they've put this in the budget at a cost. It's not going to really hit me. And in 3, 4, 5 years down the road, I think there's going to be some buyer's remorse. The last comment I have is, I've been very active online on Facebook.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up, so I'll give you what you finish.
Okay, thank you. The last thing I just want to comment on, as I said, there's a lot of division. I am one of those people, I can agree to disagree, but I think one thing that really crossed the line, as you guys know, a couple years ago, there was one of our teens from, and I carry this like inside me, there was one of our teens that crashed into a bridge on 95. I didn't know the kid. I drove right by the accident. At a time I wish I hadn't seen it. I actually saw it, okay? And that kid, I know some backstory behind it.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to.
There's bullying and stuff. Brian, I'm going to tell you right now, you actually liked a comment on Facebook where somebody was referencing fighting. They were referencing that. And I think you owe an apology to the community because you're just...
I'm sorry. Okay.
Not fun.
William Hall, Durham. First, about the middle school. It was built, except for the stairways, it was 1800s factory construction. The stairways were upgraded. For instance, Demerit Hall at the university was built 15 years before that, didn't even have metal stairways. And they knocked that down a while ago. Dover just knocked down a school that was only 52 years old. It was finished in 1957. And this school, of course, as you know, is 32 years older than that. I went to this school, and it was getting tired when I was there. And we put a lot of money in and stretched it out, as it said here, the length of 2 football fields, which I think is incredible. In my opinion, make it short, you can't take that thing down fast enough. I don't believe it's economical to keep it going. I believe even though the new school is bigger, it's going to cost less the environmental cost will be less, and you'll be some advantages to the mission that the school tries to conduct in that new school. And the interest, we're getting at about 2% or a little over. I don't think we're going to beat that. The cost of construction, I think, is about to go up, and delaying is going to be not cost effective. And I think the sooner this thing starts, the better. We've had a very good team working on it. The engineering and the architecture has been something that I was very impressed by. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Dr. Morse has 3 jobs. He has to run the school district. He has to work with the team on designing this school. And then he has to go around, schlepping around to people's houses and selling it, and the council and everything else. And I'd hate to do this project again at a later date and not have someone that does the job this well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. We have the approval. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I wasn't going to make a comment, but pointing at me, I'll say I'm Dean Rubine from Lee. I coach math counts, and Oyster River made it through the regionals, and so we're going to the state finals, which I think is March 7th or something. Go team.
Great.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Others? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the February 5th regular minutes? Denise or somebody?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for, what was it?
February 5th.
February 5th, sorry.
Second, Brian. Corrections, changes? Oh, Denise?
A really simple one on page 5, like right the first paragraph, Power School should be capitalized because it's the name of a program, and I'm not sure, is it actually spelled?
It's P and an S, right? The cap? Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, that's all.
Michael, go ahead.
In the public comments on page 6, it says that Dean Rubine welcomed Kenny back and congratulated Michael and Denise on the run for their board chair for the next 3 years, and I think it would be more clear to say board seats than
yeah.
chair in this case.
Oh, yeah, good catch.
Seats, chairs, semantics.
I had just a couple. And basically, I think you probably got down what I said, but this is what I meant, okay? So it's not you, it's not me, all right? But I think I've given it to you that on the board comments about Matt Pappas, The Rochester Board was chosen as the Board of the Year, and Matt made an impressive presentation on the board's work. Tom applauded him for his board work, and which parallels the focus on civic involvement in his classes. So I've given you that. Okay, and I think on page 5, the word amenity should be anonymity. When you talk about this, the survey. Additional comments and thoughts were shared pertaining to teacher anonymity.
The end of it's the second paragraph, the last word in that first line.
Okay. Other changes? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in favor, the minutes are approved. Okay, a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes. Denise?
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes for February 5th.
Moved by Denise, is there a second? Second by Brian. Are there changes? Is the adjournment in that?
It's fine.
It's fine, okay, great. Okay, all in favor, raise your hands. 7 in favor, the non-public meeting minutes are approved. Announcements, commendations, and comments from the district.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
We talked at our last school board meeting about coming back now and giving you an update on kindergarten registration. The official kindergarten registration kickoff period is over. Of course, we continue to enroll students anytime a family comes to our school, and we know that registrations will continue, but our 7 days of scheduled hours have ended. It went very well. We didn't hear we heard positive comments about the explanations for why we'd be giving school assignments in August, as well as classroom assignments. And when parents had questions about busing or reasons for that, everyone was able to give very consistent answers, and people went away understanding the decisions that the district was making for that. And so that was really positive, I thought. At Mohammed, last year, when we entered February break, we had 46 students registered. And we started the school year with 57. So there were 11 more registered between February and September. This year, we right now have 44 students registered. So it's a very similar number to where we were last year. I can't tell you what will happen between tomorrow and September 1st, but we're pretty much in the same spot we were in last year.
Okay, great.
Hi. So for Mastway School, we currently have 54 students registered for kindergarten. This time last year, we were at 58. So we are anticipating from families that we've heard from and from students that we are expecting from our PEP program to have 2 to 4 additional students. But currently, as of this evening, it was 54. Last year at this time was 58, and we did start the school year at 64. So I wouldn't be surprised by another half a dozen students-ish registering for kindergarten at Mastway.
Thank you.
It's interesting how parallel they were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So it's like similar to last year.
Yes.
Yes.
And at least at Mohammed, I would say we've seen a lot of new families. I mean, we definitely get siblings, but we also have a considerable number of families, first child, in this year and also coming for next year.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for us?
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yep.
I just wanted to stop in and publicly congratulate some of our teams. Our boys swim team just this past weekend won the Division II state championship. Our girls finished third, which was a great showing. And our boys indoor track team the weekend before won the Division II state championship, and girls were the runner-up. So it's been a real successful couple weeks for our teams. Our alpine ski teams did very, very well at their respective state championships, and it's now we're on to basketball, hockey, and playoffs. So, but I just wanted to come up and publicly congratulate those teams for all their hard work. I think it was a fantastic result. So.
Andy, did both of the basketball teams make it into playoffs?
Well, we're still regular season, so
When's it end?
those girls will wind up next week. They won't make the playoffs, but the boys will. And both hockey teams are doing really well, so they should be pretty high seeds. We're hoping for some home games.
Thank you.
Others from the district? No? From the board? Kenny?
Just among your strengths, Dr. Morse, is your ability to reach out to the public and answer questions. And I was wondering if you'd be able to, I didn't catch the gentleman's name, but specifically provide the answer regarding state aid.
I wrote him down for my superintendent report.
Good. Thank you for doing that for us.
Yes, no problem.
Denise?
And I just want to congratulate also, I believe I read the robotics team did really well, and some are going on. And I think just across the board, it's just amazing how many of our students are engaged in activities and really having a high level of success. So congratulations to all those students. I know it's a lot of hard work.
Others now?
I just wanted to thank the district for all the work they did in making the primary a success. We had 5,600 voters come in to the high school, which is why we need to use the high school, including 1,400 same-day registrants that went through the multi-purpose room. So it was really, really well coordinated and well run, and we couldn't have done it without the school district.
Thanks. Others? Okay, thank you. District reports?
Good evening. The last meeting, I was not able to be here. Wasn't because I was blowing you off. I had the opportunity to go talk to the Durham Energy Committee. We were presenting, Ron Lamar and I presented on the middle school project, and I have to say, it was a time well spent. It's one of the most inquisitive groups I've had the opportunity to talk to. They're clearly very invested and committed to sustainability and conservation of energy practices. Ron and I spent a good 2 hours with them talking through the project. I was very appreciative to have Ron there because he obviously had all the technical knowledge, but it was a great experience, and I just wanted to publicly thank the Durham Energy Committee for inviting us in because I thought it was a great thing. And if there are any other committee groups that would like to hear from us, love to talk to you. Second thing I did want to mention, just as a response to the question that was asked regarding class size guidelines, that 900 square feet shows up in a couple of places. The Steve Blatt architectural study that was done for us in 2015 used the 900 square foot number as an industry standard. And then it also shows up in New Hampshire minimum standards. I'm going to have to turn to Catherine. It's 321.1, is that what it is? 321.1, but it specifically cites for elementary and middle school classrooms, 900 square feet is the optimal guideline to shoot for. I also wanted to talk to you. We're in the phases of planning the REACH program for the summer. I know it's hard to believe that we're already at that point. I included the digital flyer that we sent out last week to kind of get the ball rolling. As we have in the past, we are partnering with the Durham Parks and Recreation Department, and we also have the Oyster River Food Service program engaged, and so we are running a similar program as we have in the past, where the school district runs the morning program Monday through Thursdays, Durham Parks and Rec runs the afternoon program also Monday through Thursdays, and then Durham Parks and Rec runs an all-day field trip on Fridays, so it gives parents a wide range of opportunities to pick the level of involvement they want to have, but it's certainly up to a 5-day-a-week, full-day involvement in a program is possible. One of the things we are working with, we're hopeful that when March 10th rolls around, there will be a yes vote on the middle school project, and construction will begin at the middle school. So we are in the preliminary stages of talking about how that will impact Reach summer programming. We're confident that we'll be able to run the program, but obviously there are a few more logistical hurdles for us to work through as we make our plan. But we still believe, regardless, the middle school is going to be the best site to offer it because the classrooms that are there, and specifically the facilities we need to use in order to run some of the programs that we're running. But we will be actively working to finalize that. Al, I'm hoping that our program this year will get the Al Howland seal of approval. We are changing the program around. Fortunately, we now have Schoology as our learning management system, and it does offer a wider range of possibilities. So we're working to try to create a more user-friendly catalog document. So please be on the lookout for that. And
No, this morning I just talked to Growing Places as well, because I think they're going to do it at Moherman, I believe, is their summer program. So we're just trying to get, like, when you guys are finalized, we'll get all the information out and kind of spread it to the community. I know that Rachel's programs are pretty limited and fill up really fast, and that's what they were saying as well with Growing Places. So
Sure.
Let's try to get it. People are starting to plan, so we'll try to get out as fast.
Absolutely, and one of the variables that is unique to the school program, just so people understand, and one of the things that makes our program very special is that we're accessing Oyster River school staff to run these programs and getting them committed and figuring out exactly what they're going to do. It takes some time to, January, February, the teachers are not necessarily at a point of saying, what am I going to do in July? So we're finalizing that. Our plan is that the new program will be out later in March. However, parents wondering if it's going to run, it absolutely is going to run. It's going to run just like it has in the past, and the specifics of the school program will be out later in the month of March. Okay. Last thing I wanted to mention, moving away from Reach, I just wanted to briefly talk about world language, because that came up 2 meetings ago when I was just doing the strategic plan kind of update on where things were. Some questions came up about world language, and particularly regarding that transition from middle to high school. We've had, since that time, our world language teachers at the middle and high school have conducted 2 assessments with all of the 8th grade kids, as well as all of the level 2 kids at the high school. One that's a reading and writing assessment, and another one that's a speaking and listening assessment. And then one whole day our Spanish teachers spent together reviewing those and kind of coming to some common understanding of where the kids were at. And then another whole day our French teachers did the same thing. And one of the goals with a proficiency-based program is we recognize that the starting point of the curriculum is sort of shifting, it's moving, and actually what we're discovering is that the kids coming out of the middle school are better prepared than kids who have had the more traditional approach. One of the reasons why we chose to do it with level 2s at the high school and all 8th graders was to kind of, that's historically where we would have said that's the curriculum point that the transition is taking place. And one of the things we're finding is, and I would expect it because our kids now have 3 years of world language in middle school, from a proficiency standpoint, they're stronger. So it's giving us a lot more information. We're still working on placement to make sure kids are in the right place when they're in their freshman world language experience. But 2 things came from that work. One was a broad understanding of where all of our kids are at in world language. And then the other thing was, where does our curriculum need to start coming in for freshmen? Because that is really what it's all about, is making sure kids are where they need to be to get the right experience in world language. And so we don't have a 100% resolved solution, but just know that that is something that we are working on, and it's a good problem to have because our kids are more proficient than they've been in the past. Yeah.
So I may have the date confused, but I think the deadline for registering for 9th grade classes is Friday. If the recommendations aren't done yet, is there going to be some...
That's one of the things we're working on is making sure we have flexibility within the system to work with kids. One of the things that we found was, particularly when kids were signing up, they tended to be more cautious, so they tended to think of themselves lower rather than higher. And one of the things we're finding is, as we're doing the assessment, it's like actually more of the kids are on the higher end than the lower end. So there is going to be some fluidity in that. So you're absolutely right. The deadline is coming up for signups. But particularly the 8th graders coming up to the high school, the teachers are conferencing with them, and they're very much aware of where they're at. the assessment that they did with all of the kids, they're actually going to do it again later in the year, and so they can kind of follow up with kids so they can have a better sense of where they stand coming in. Because really the goal is to make sure kids feel successful and are appropriately placed in the high school level. This year we did have, it was rocky for some kids making the transition, and we're trying to smooth that out.
So the recommendation would just be to request the recommended class, and then there's going to be further evaluation,
Yes,
and
exactly.
that would be
Make
the time
sure
for
we're-
changes, yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Okay, yes, Denise?
So, and does that mean that some students will actually start, say, at level 3 as opposed to level 2, or how will that work? I'm not sure. I'm still trying to get a feel for these
Right.
levels and how that
Right.
compares to, like, you know, French 1, French 2, you know, that
I
kind
think
of.
more what we realize, it's more a question of where does 3 start, as
Oh, okay.
opposed to whether they're in 2 or 3.
Got it.
Because you want
Okay.
to make sure kids are where they need to be. There's also some conversation that they found that particularly when kids are starting languages later in their high school career, putting them in classes with the younger kids tends to make it a little more challenging. So to the extent that we can, trying to make sure that we're not having such a wide range of ages in those classrooms, because we found that like a junior at the beginning level with a freshman at the beginning level, it was a little more challenging for those kids to be in the same room together to develop their language skills. So yeah, it's a question of where do we begin, more so than whether we call it a 3 or a 2. It's making sure a starting point is the right place. Okay? All right.
I always like to use the Camp Reach as a plug for Durham Parks and Rec, and especially for Rachel Gazowski. But the planning that she's put in for the afternoon programs is extensive. And to really emphasize what Al said, that they fill up. Durham did buy a bigger van so we could fit more kids, but it does fill up. And just want to also put that reminder, it is first come, first serve. It's not by what town you live in. So it's open to Madbury and Lee as well as Durham on that first come, first serve. And the fee is uniform across the community as well.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
And
Thank you for
just
that
to
reminder.
clarify on that, will the registration for both morning and afternoon programs be through the same portal as it has
That
been
will
in
be
the
an
past?
option, yes. We will, Durham Parks and Rec, they also have their own, you can also register through them for the Durham Parks program, but you can register for both through the school district send money to school account.
Yeah, so both options.
Okay?
Other
All right,
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's report?
So just before I transition into my report, I do want to commend Todd. The REACH program has just been an incredible success, especially the relationship with the town of Durham has really been miraculous is the word I would use. I also wanted to remind everybody that the REACH program is self-sufficient. It's not paid for by the taxpayers, it's paid for by the parent participants. And I think that makes it unique as well. And Todd has used whatever money is left over to provide scholarships to families in the district who need financial assistance. So it's not designed to make money, but each year it makes a little bit, and we use that little bit to help families in need. So it is an incredible partnership between the school system and the town of Durham's rec program, and Rachel could not be a better partner. Just shifting over to my report, a number of major endeavors are beginning to kind of coalesce in March. One is the Unh Survey. So we met this week with a much broader committee that included parents and teachers, administrators, and board members, and we fine-tuned the questions that we would want on the survey. We are going to process those recommendations from the larger committee, which were actually relatively minor, kind of like the conversation we had at the board level, and get that finished. That will come out in mid-March. So we're that close to finishing that major initiative. I also wanted to talk about the principal search at Massway. We've had our screening committee engaged Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week at 7:30 in the morning. And we went through 6 candidates that we felt were plausible candidates for interviews. The committee chose 5 of those candidates. That committee was made up of parents, board member Brian, as well as faculty and support staff. So it was a broad committee, and so we're setting up interviews for that position Monday when we return, and there's a memo in your packet outlining the timeline. So Monday, March 2nd at 4, 5, and 6, we'll do 3 of the candidates, and then on Tuesday the 3rd, we'll do the final 2, and we'll save an extra hour with the committee to get down to 2 candidates. At that point, when we have the 2 finalists, we'll do school visits on Thursday, March 5th, and Friday, March 6th. And we'll have a parent night for both candidates on Monday, March 9th. And that will end with a recommendation to this body on March 18th for the full-time permanent principal for the Massway School. So that's another major initiative we're bringing to closure. And even as we're bringing the middle school initiative to a vote in March. So March is kind of like the big month for us in this particular school year. I just want to give you a couple of places where I've been. So most recently this weekend, I was at the Universalist Church, and Anita Mather and the Alumni Association meet monthly there for a wine tasting. So for the second month in a row, while I was doing the presentation on the middle school, I got to taste wine concurrently. So that is a really unique experience for a superintendent. The community church was Sunday. That was a great experience. I got to meet Michael's mother at the community church, and she was very nice, and she sat through the presentation, Michael. Mm-hmm. I'm sure she probably heard it from you, but we're very polite and stayed there. So in those 2 meetings, that was probably another, I would say 40 plus seniors. And so what I, as I've said to you before, what I find is as I do these meetings in people's homes or in churches or, you know, in organizations, it tends to be the senior population, which really is a bit rewarding for me since, you know, I'll be talking to my age peers at that point. Thank you, Al. And tomorrow night, I'm doing the Madbury Community Club. That's at 7 o'clock. And then next Thursday, Jay and Suzanne and Brian presenting to the Riverwoods group. And so that's a big presentation that we've been looking forward to. And then the final presentation for the middle school is going to be Monday the 2nd. It's sports night, and Andy and Todd are going to take on that. And then in the very last week, Monday the 2nd through the 6th, we are going to have the middle school left open from 4 to 7:30 every single night, just so people can come in and see the condition of the building. I think the building itself really is the strongest selling point for why it needs to be replaced. We'll have various staff there just to welcome people, and you know, we have no idea how many people will take advantage of it, but we're going to keep it open specifically for that purpose through that week.
So question about that?
Mm-hmm.
Will that go out in, as a notice to the community?
Went out today
So-
went out to Friday Update today, and it went out to the e-Crier today.
Okay.
So those big issues are coming to a closure. Then we get to the ORYA request for a meeting. We had a really great conversation with the executive director. We're meeting on Friday to determine access to his board. So that is ongoing. And then I think those are the big things I wanted to talk about. I want to address Darren's questions. Thanks, Darren, for asking them. So a lot of conversation around what the school will cost. And of course, that's a logical conversation to be having. The night I presented to the select board in Lee, my friend, Scott Bugby, and I mean that seriously, Scott's been an awesome person to work with over the years, at his seat calculated tax impact. What I think happened that night is that Scott didn't have the offsets. And so had there not been any offsets, he had calculated, for example, in year 4 and 5, the impact was going to be over $2. The offset for year 4 and 5 is pretty obvious, and that is the high school bond is over in year 3. So all of the funds that we would have paid for the high school bond will offset the bond for the middle school. So the tax impact in year 4 and 5 is not $2. In year 4 and 5, the bond tax impact is 0, or very close to 0, because the middle school will assume the payment that was going to be made to the high school. That makes sense. High school bond ends in year 3. Those funds are available to pay the bond in year 4 and 5.
You know where that $2 came from?
I have no idea, Darren.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I really don't. I'm saying tonight that I have absolute respect for Scott Bugby. He is a dear friend who's worked on this project for years. I was not at the table when he was doing his calculations, but I suspect it was because he didn't have the numbers that went from the middle school bond to the high school bond.
No, I'm sorry. There's no public comment now.
So in the first year, of course, we've already articulated the impact of the bond, and so the board worked aggressively to lower the operating costs in order to make the bond affordable. Then we get to the second year. The second year of the bond is our tough year. I have said that in front of this body. I've said that in front of the select boards and the councils. Year 2 is the year that is our hardest year. The issue is that we have offsets there as well. We just don't know, sitting here, how large those offsets will be. So let me just share a couple of what those offsets will be in year 2. Assuming the board approves a recommendation from me for a retirement incentive, that's a voluntary retirement incentive, because I've heard that somebody feels like this would be pushing people out. It absolutely is not pushing people out. A voluntary retirement incentive. So the teachers union did a survey a couple of months ago, and they identified 17 people on the faculty who would be interested in retiring if there was an incentive. So that incentive would save several hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not going to say it's 2, I'm not going to say it's 3, because I don't know, how many teachers will actually take advantage of it, but I suspect it'll be a lot, because the district hasn't offered a retirement incentive in years. So that's one offset. The other offset is any savings we get from health insurance this year is already in the budget. So if we get savings from health insurance, we apply that against the bond in the second year as well. Then the board, over the last 5 years, has received permission from the taxpayers to create trust and emergency funds that can be used to offset taxes. The board has permission from the taxpayers and has authority to spend that money when the board deems it necessary. Right now, in those funds, we have $1.2 million to apply against any sudden spike in taxes. That's a third tool the board has. And of course, the fourth tool the board always has is, as it did this year, is a reduction in the budget itself. It made dramatic reductions in the capital account this year in order to be able to afford the bond in the first year. That option exists for the board in the second year as well. When we hit the third year, the increase is a nominal increase that we faced before. So year 1, it's on record. Year 4 and 5, the high school bond pays for the middle school bond. Year 2, our big year, we have 4 or 5 different offsets. Year 3 is a typical budget increase that we feel like we can assume in a nominal fashion. So that's the path that, as superintendent, I see available to the board. And my final thought on this, just so you know, is I sat with Josh yesterday, Josh Olstead, our IT guy, and our frequently asked questions has grown to 23. So if you have a question and you're looking for it, you have to go through now 23 different questions. The closer we get to the vote, the questions tend to circulate around finance and bond. So yesterday I had Josh cluster those questions together, and we're going to put a hot button on the front page of the web page, so you'll see the proposed middle school, and then below that, finance and budget questions. So all a person would have to do to get the same answers I'm giving you tonight is to hit that button, and those answers are right there. And they're very duplicative of what I'm saying tonight. So I think the board has done an amazing job of laying out a 5-year plan in order to afford the bond on the middle school. The only option that the board had other than this is to do what Dover and Newmarket did and issue the bond, if it's approved in March, overnight, and instantly hit the taxpayers with a 7% increase in taxes, not including the operating cost, which is a crushing blow to both communities. The way the board has done it is responsible, it makes sense, and it builds our ability to pay that bond over a 5-year period with nominal, not zero, but nominal impact on taxes over that 5-year period. So I think that addressed those questions. And again, all of that is in writing. It's on the web page, and we'll make it super easy for people to get to starting tomorrow. Questions from the board?
I would add, as a minor additional point, I think you did a great job of summarizing the landscape. Part of the reason that we have the ramp over the 5 years in the bond payments is because the recommendation from yourself and Sue to divide the bond into 2 issues, that has the effect of stretching out the ramp up, but it also saves, I can't remember the number, we looked at this back in May and June, I think, but I want to say a couple $100,000 in interest as well.
Exactly.
By doing that.
Yeah.
And that interest could be applied.
And yeah, when we get to the end of the project, any interest earned, and of course we all know that the interest at that people are earning on investments now is really, really low. But any interest earned could be used for paying playground equipment that or you know, apply towards the solar panels or what have you. So that interest also could be used to help pay the bond. And so, you know, you have that question in front of you. If March 10th is successful, you'll be facing that question in 2 years. So that's a question out there for a ways.
Questions?
So I just had one, but I wanted to let people talk about the budget. I just wanted to back up an item. Dr. Morse, you talked about your meeting with ORYA's director. So do we have any, have we gotten any word from them? We had requested a while back, I believe Todd and verbally asked them to correct the misinformation that they had sent out about the school district's allocating of facility time. Dr. Morse, you happened to come out of the Madbury polls when I happened to be talking to a citizen who was voicing frustration, and then you also mentioned that you had received another, at least one other email from another parent. Point being, there's still that misperception out there. Have they made any genuine effort to correct what they've described?
The straight answer, Dan, is I don't know. That's kind of what this Friday meeting is about, is to see if he's done anything on that and also to get access to his board of directors. So we'll find out on Friday.
Okay. And I mean, just to say it out loud, one of my concerns is that we've already, our administration in particular, between you and Todd, Andy, Jim Rozicki, has spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
I just hope that we're not continuing that pattern, trying to, I mean,
Me too.
the policy is the policy. It will work if people participate. I just don't want us to spend a ton more time trying to work things out. So
I agree.
Just for the record, I did speak with Matt directly. He was very quick to say, yep, we'll put you on the agenda for the next executive board meeting. That was scheduled for the Wednesday of our vacation week, and then they moved, because their board of directors couldn't meet then, they moved it to the 4th of March, which is also a school board meeting night. So that would have been the date that they opened it up to us. And so now we're simply trying to find a date that will work to meet. So I just wanted, they were very open to the idea of meeting. I just wanted to make that clear.
So the timing is really critical too, because to some degree, this mischaracterization undermines certain individuals, certain members of the community's confidence in the school district. And with the vote coming on March 10th, I really think we have to get something out there that at least gets the correct version of the story out. I'd hate to think that people would go to the polls thinking that that mischaracterization is to at least some degree accurate.
You know, I just wanted to add that, you know, we did recently have a meeting with both organizations, Jim Rizicki, Stacy, and myself, to work on on the spring scheduling. And I feel like that both organizations are very clear as to what you know, what is expected at this time now. And they were both very cordial with each other, very cooperative. I was actually very pleased with the way that the meeting went. So you know, I'm hopeful going forward that you know, any of this confusion is cleared up, and I don't, you know, hoping that we won't have any more you know, of the divide that we've had.
Have we worked out an efficient means to actually monitor usage? Because the reason I ask is the policy requires that if you book time, you know you're not going to use it, you must release it. And to some extent, that was not followed
Yeah, and
over the winter.
Outside of, you know, one of us being here.
Well, right. I mean, we don't want to be ridiculous, but I mean,
Right.
there are cards and they're unique to any particular
And
organization.
we've made it clear to both organizations that we really need to know, you know, when they aren't going to be using a particular space. I think that's improved. I still think that there's room, you know, for improvement there, for sure. But you know, you're right. It is a concern, and it's something that, you know, we really have to figure out how to kind of monitor and make sure that that's not happening, because it is time that could be used by someone else, if it's just sitting there idle, or, you know.
Right. Dr. Morris, is that something that Jim Rizicki could talk to us about maybe at our next meeting in terms of how the system works, essentially? Is there a way for him or his assistant to audit that? Okay.
Yep, we can bring Jim and go through the whole process and give you a sense of how people schedule. But I think the key to your question, Dan, is people asking for space and not using it. So, you know, we've been crystal clear in several meetings that if you're asking for space, it means you're trying to use it. This winter, we discovered that they asked for space, denoted it as flex time, and then never used it. And so it's constantly refining and redirecting, and that's get back to your issue of, are we wasting a lot of time?
Right.
Yeah, we are. And you know, in the conversation that Andy had on spring sports, you know, he was very clear on this again. And that's, you know, short of expecting our people to show up, I think the process that you'll hear from Jim is straightforward. Is there potential for any group to say, I want a space, and then not show up? Yeah, unless we have somebody physically present watching the building. But I think we're on a heightened alert, sort of, if you think about it now, because we've been burned twice on the same issue. And so I don't expect that will continue.
So I guess what I was hoping is perhaps there's a way to generate some sort of a log of, right, because if you open and secure any particular building, there are unique cards issued for any particular organization. It would stand to reason that there might be an electronic record of that particular card being used to unlock the alarm and rearm the alarm.
Let me check that.
And because I'm in total agreement, I mean, it's ridiculous to have someone standing in the building. That's obviously what we want to avoid. So maybe there's like a really efficient way, is what I'm getting at, to just generate a report that just, and look, the occasional instance is not the end of the world. It's just sort of that habitual pattern of behavior that we want to know about.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the last part of my report tonight is, again, an update on the strategic plan. I think that the board would agree that these constant updates on where we are at different places in the strategic plan are keeping you current. And so tonight, what we want to do is give you an update on the technology component of the strategic plan. You got a report from Josh, and he'll just do a brief presentation and be glad to answer any of the board's questions.
All right. This is like the tech guy's worst nightmare, getting the tech up and it not working. It's like a pop quiz.
There you go.
All right, perfect. All right, good evening. I'm just going to run through the different goals that we had set for this year and just provide some updates on where we're at. Obviously, we're not through the whole year yet, and some of these things are multi-year pieces. So the first goal we had was extending the one-to-one program from the middle school up to the high school. And so last spring, with the 8th graders moving to the 9th grade, we made the decision to get the 9th grade squared away so there wouldn't be any sort of gap with them not having the technology. So far we've done 9th grade this year, and overall it's gone really well. We've had very minimal damage. I'm pretty sure the new excuse is going to be the dog ate my power cord, because we have seen that a couple times. But overall, it's been going well. The feedback has been great. The upper grades are really happy because it's freed up the carts. They're able to do some more stuff there. And then I know Celeste Bess, who's the tech integrator, has done a lot of PD around how to move your classroom, make it more digital workflows, how kids can submit assignments, and she's hit, I believe, most of the staff. So next year, when everyone has a laptop, they'll be ready to go. And Suzanne Philippone and I have been meeting and discussing. We had a meeting, I think, before Christmas around, what do the computer labs look like now? What is their role? And so we actually have a meeting first thing tomorrow to kind of keep the process going of, what are the potential issues or things we haven't thought about. But so far it's been going really well. We expect the rollout for the rest of the school to go as well. So the second goal is keeping up with the laws, and this has been probably the biggest amount of time I've spent. There was a huge law passed, a very tiny law that has huge impact from last year. And part of it required us to adopt a data governance and security plan. That was presented to the board last spring. The board approved it. And so we're working through that now and identifying the process to implement the different pieces. It's going to take some time, but we're confident we can get that done. One of the big concerns I had when I read the law is there was a line that said vendors or anybody we share student information with also have to adhere to these standards. And being from a small state like New Hampshire, how are we going to approach these huge companies and actually get them to say, yeah, we'll follow this little New Hampshire law? One of the things that I've been working on with some peers, and Dr. Morse has been very supportive of this, is we've worked to form a collaborative of districts across the state, especially the smaller schools. We were really concerned about their ability to do this.
And so basically what we've done is we started the work in middle of June last year. And so at this point, we're up to 68 school districts that are working together, and it's over 140,000 New Hampshire students are covered by this work. And according to the October 1st numbers, that's about 80% of the students in the state. And so basically what we're doing is we're working together to pool resources around getting agreements out to these vendors and having them, and basically the agreement is that, it defines the state standards and says you will meet them. But a lot of times there are some back and forth with their legal team, and if you figure how many apps there are out there and how many of them are duplicated, and then if each individual school district was having to pay their school lawyer to review these agreements. So we're all kind of putting money into a pot and working on that. So that's been going really well. We have over, I think, 215 different applications that have, the companies have signed off on this agreement. So that's been taking quite a bit of time. But it's been really good to see the collaboration across the state. I think New Hampshire's probably not the most collaborative group, but it's been going really well. And then just looking at our district, so far we've identified over 150 applications that are in use, and it's probably going to double in size once we get through everything. And what we're doing now is going through each of them to see how they're being used, what information are the companies collecting, so we can determine if we have to send a data privacy agreement off to them. And really, the only reason we've been able to even identify these 150 apps is because of the instructional technology people. So I do want to say thank you to Susan Leifer, Sarah Curtin, Janet Martell, Celeste Best, and also our I'm blank. It's Kristen Hughes. I can't think of her title, Catherine.
Adaptive technology.
Yes, yeah, assistive technologist. They've all been working with the staff, educating them on the new law, looking at the applications they're using. We go back and forth all the time with questions. So they've been really helpful in moving this along. I believe Celeste did a big training for the high school at the last teacher workshop day. So it's been great. So the other piece this spring, summer, we had planned to update some infrastructure equipment. So that was our switches, network switches. So we were able to do that across the elementaries, the transportation building, SAU, and the high school. We had, I'm getting ahead of myself. So one of the things was that the new models come with a different warranty, so we're not paying an additional cost. So we're saving some money year over year, somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000 a year. So that was helpful. We had planned to replace our firewall, but after looking at our usage, especially after the middle school one-to-one, we felt that we could stick it out another year. It still has plenty of capacity. It's still supported, so that's scheduled for replacement in 21-22. And I did want to provide a quick picture of, we did a lot of cleanup when we were ripping everything out. So we tried to make it a lot easier to see, shortened up the cables. So that's been really helpful just when we go in the closets to troubleshoot and find things. So the guys did a great job on that. And then, of course, as the new middle school is being planned, I've been attending different meetings. Any opportunity I get to talk to different technology companies about the potential products that we may put in, I meet with them and just kind of see what's current, what's out there. We had a meeting with Dell to talk about devices, and we started talking about projection and display panels. So it's been great. They're willing to give us some demos to try out with some of our staff. And of course that's ongoing. This is kind of a duplicate of, because of the law, but going through and inventorying all of our applications and what their functions are, so that's ongoing. I did want to highlight that, outside of the strategic plan, we have lots of different projects going on. We replaced all our copiers this year, which is always a fun project. We did have an iPad lease come up, and so we replaced about 200 iPads. And then as we're doing the one-to-one 5th through 12th grade, we really needed a platform to be able to send out assignments digitally and collect things. So we bought a program called Schoology. We've been working on the implementation with that. We had a little bit of a rough start, but we're getting things back up and running on that. Doing some pilots right now on some specific features that the program has. And I do want to give a big shout out to my staff. You guys get to see Alexander at every meeting, and he does a phenomenal job. But I have a good team that's behind the scenes. So I want to thank Sue, Alexander, Bruce, Bob, John, and Ryan. Over my time here, it's going to be 8 years in April, we have done a lot, and we continually ask them to do a lot, and they always work super hard to get it done, and they just do such a great job. And while we focus on a lot of the back-end stuff and making the databases work, the instructional technology staff have really done a phenomenal job of interfacing with the teachers and really helping kind of bridge the gap between us and the teachers. And it's been really helpful to be able to kind of run the ideas and get feedback through them. It's not always easy to kind of do both sides. So they've just been really helpful. And I think that's it.
Denise?
Oh, well, you can go first.
Oh, so I just wanted to, with this, because you had in here the Schoology, and we approved it last year, but we as a board really haven't ever kind of looked at it. And I know you've put in like a newsletter, Suzanne had one, that it's coming, but what I found to be really instructive, and it's kind of a frightening thought, is I had my high schooler actually run me through how they use Schoology. And that could already be done. We don't have to wait till the fall. It is really helpful as a parent if you sit down and you look at how Schoology is being used, and then you can then move to Power School and you can see how it works its way through. It really gives the parent a much more informed idea of what's going on. So rather than waiting, again, it can be a useful tool right now, and instead of waiting months or forming a parent portal, just like even in your newsletter saying a frightening concept, sit down and talk with your student and have them run you through how they're using Schoology and how does that relate to Power School, because the first thing the parent is always going to go to is to Power School. They're going to say, oh, you're missing this assignment. But then if they can back up and go to Schoology and look and get an idea of simple things. I mean, I'm of the old school where everybody had their own computer, and I'm dating myself back to Word or Pages, but since they'll see how it's all built and integrated together. And I think it would be really instructive to throw that out to parents now, because it's a useful tool. It'll get them ready. As the portal opens, they'll do it. I think it would also be helpful. I don't know if anybody else on the board has actually run through it. If you don't have a kid that's using it, you probably haven't. So it would be not, and I'm not going to volunteer my daughter to like look at stuff, so she kills me. But it would be really, really helpful to run like a sample thing of Schoology so everybody can look at it. You don't have to do really a presentation. It allows everybody just to kind of run through it.
Yep, certainly. Yeah, we ran into the implementation, we had a lot of issues with the data coming from Power School into Schoology.
Yeah.
And in the process of that, Schoology was acquired by Power School. And so then they decided to change how all that data flows. So we didn't get that. That probably delayed us about 3 months. And so it wasn't until after Christmas that we really got to dive back in. So like right now, we're doing some work at the middle school around how it reports out competencies. We're also working at the elementaries around the parent portal part of it.
Right.
And trying to, fully make sure that we understand the sign-up process so we can support parents. And kind of add a communication piece. But I mean, so far it's been very positive.
I mean, aside from the parent portal, though, to me, the the most useful thing when you're having any portal is where the student and you are sitting down at the table, and I'm sitting here looking at the assignment. I see how it works, and then I can work my way through it. It's really, again, it clarifies everything and takes away a lot of excuses. So that already exists, and showing parents how to do that, it just is a really good tool.
I think it would be very helpful to do that, and I think that's something that I know that Celeste and I have talked about. We have, because there was a delay in getting it going, we have a range of where faculty are in their use in the high school. So we have some people that are early adopters and have quickly and rapidly started utilizing Schoology in the classroom, and then we have others that it's taking a little bit longer. So we wanted to get through this school year, but we can definitely talk about that when we meet. And their adaptive scheduler is also something that I think parents aren't aware of, which is within PowerSchool. And so one of the things that I had a parent meeting, and I was talking to the parent about adaptive scheduler, and they didn't know where to find it, and that's how to see where your child is going during the flexible time. So parents can actually access that and see where their children are signing themselves out to go. And so that's something that we're going to be doing a little bit more parent education around also. So as we start to see these gaps and we hear from parents, we'll definitely fill that in.
Yeah, again, like I realize that everyone's at a different place, but even if, no matter where you are, if you have a student, you can, again, it'll facilitate the conversation that you're going to have anyway, because once you go to PowerSchool and you're looking at it and you're like, well, okay, what's going on with this? Again, that would lead you to the Schoology, and you can begin to look at how it all works, and it gives parents a little bit more, I don't know, the illusion of control, that they can actually work with it. So I think that's a good area to. I mean, I know I know it's taken a lot to get it up, and I know it's a lot of technology, but there's a lot of opportunity now, particularly in the spring, to really give parents a heads up.
Okay. Denise, you had a question?
Yeah, and Suzanne might need. I'm just curious, going back to the one-to-one, in terms of the Barrington students coming in who haven't had, the one-to-one at their middle school yet, and how did they adapt? I imagine well, and it wasn't too much of an issue for them to get up to speed on it, or was there a little bit more?
They actually are coming from one-to-one.
So they do have one-to-one at Barrington also?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. So it really was pretty seamless then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very seamless for our freshmen.
Okay, cool.
Michael?
Going back to Schoology for just a second, with the change in the architecture and that slowing things down a little bit, can you comment on the progress in terms of migrating teachers' content from the legacy systems, whether it's Google Classroom or Blackboard or whatever, into Schoology, and if there's a timeline in mind for retiring any of those legacy systems?
Well, there's the ouch question for the night, Michael. Yes, in fact, we just, Josh and I and the IT teachers met at the end of last week and put together I put together a draft memo on the legacy stuff that will go out Friday before vacation, to let them know that starting in the fall, we will not be supporting the legacy programming, and that's their signal for those who are the reluctant learners to start engaging, because what they're used to will be not available to them in the fall.
Thanks.
Yeah, I said that was the ouch question, because when it goes out, Josh and I will feel the ouch.
Other questions? Thanks for all this good work, and I think particularly, I mean, the stuff you're doing for the state in terms of making it easier for everybody to accommodate to these new regulations.
Yeah,
really
that went surprisingly well, and a lot of it really is Dr. Morse's work. We did a road show to different superintendents. We even got in front of the commissioner, although he said he couldn't pay for it. But we really got a lot of great adoption because of getting in front of the right group. So
Thank you, Josh. And just before I finish my report, if I can just give you a heads up on field trips. Sean Kelly is taking his journalism kids to Columbia University, and that's happening, let's see if I can see the date, March 18th. Dave Irving is taking a group of musicians to New York City, and that's happening on April 16th. Andrea Von Owen presented to you last year the Strings Orchestra, and she's taking a group of strings students to the United Kingdom in May 22nd. And they have been fundraising for over a year to help delay some of the costs. I have to say that this is a unique field trip because it's in concert with UNH, and a pretty incredible opportunity for our students. And just so you know, one of the chaperones is one James Morse, because I'm going to be there with the kids as they tour the United Kingdom.
Who's going to watch you?
Who's going to watch me, the kids? And then in terms of Brian Zottely got approval from you to pursue a alternative teaching commitment for 2 years unpaid from us. And he has successfully, he and his family are going to be teaching in Jeju, South Korea, starting in July of 2020, and he'll return to the district in July of 2022. So incredible opportunity for Brian, and of course we wish him the best as he takes this new adventure. So those are the field trip reports.
Business Administrator? Nothing? There's no Student Senate report. So that moves to the authorization for the letter, which I think you were sent by email, and there's a copy also in your folder. This, I think, was precipitated by the article that appeared in Foster's, which said there was no information on future tax impact. You know, the district had provided no information on future tax impacts beyond year one, essentially. And I think it, related to, I think, Dean's question at the deliberative session, what happens next, because that was really not answered in the deliberative session. So I thought, this is, we have thought through this. And so I composed a letter, shared it with Dr. Morse, and then we decided it should come to the board because it's, it really anticipates things, and I wouldn't want to send it out without response to that, whether we should send it out, or whether we should respond. But it seems to me that we haven't really publicly, except for the FAQ, come out with what are the implications beyond year one. So, and it's a little tricky to, several moving parts to this, but this is my attempt to do that. So my question is, is this okay? Should we go forward with this? Should they go forward with revisions? I didn't want to go forward without getting feedback. And I have some extra, if anybody here would want some extra copies, if anybody would like to see it in the audience. So would you like a chance to just read it through now, or have you read it, or?
Tom.
Okay. Denise?
So I think it's a good idea. I think you did a nice job, so thank you for writing that. I just had a couple of minor suggestions as far as edits.
Sure.
At the bottom of the first page, the last paragraph on the first page, but it will be an extreme challenge. I would just eliminate the word extreme and
Agreed.
just say it will be a challenge.
Agreed.
And then on the next page, I want to stress that these are estimates. The final interest rate, I think it should just point out that which could be lower than the 3% estimate that we're using. So that would be my suggestion, because we have a very conservative number for the interest rate, and it is possible that interest rate will be lower. And then when you talk about the 10 to 12 million, I believe just to say that that's just to keep it functional. That's not really, that's not really any upgrades.
That's maintenance.
Yeah, that's just maintenance. So maybe just, needed building maintenance instead of improvements, perhaps. And other than that, I think you did a nice job. I definitely would support it.
The first one, it says the February 13th story. What story was that?
It was in Foster's.
Okay, so maybe for clarity, you specify the,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And I haven't really had much time to go through it, but just the way you not doing English edits, but instead of like 21, 22, I would spell out 2021-2022, just clarity on the years.
Sorry.
Just like in the first paragraph, it says until 24-25, I would say 2024-2025. I wouldn't shorten the way you talk about the years.
Spell out the whole year.
If that makes sense.
I'm sorry, so where,
I
maybe,
think Denise could, yeah, just, there's,
Just instead of just saying 21, say 2021-2022, and the same for all of these.
Okay.
So
I just think
it's
it looks
clear
better,
about the
yeah.
years. Yeah.
okay.
and kind of maybe on par with what Denise thought about taking out extreme, on the very next line, I would take out though. Because I think we want to emphasize that
Okay.
we might hit it, and I think that subtracts from that
Okay, okay.
emphasizing.
Agreed?
In the paragraph that we were discussing where you described the increases in each year, the second sentence there, I think as soon as we understand, as soon as the bond issue happens, that amount will have to be built into the budget. So that's not a question. I think it might be clearer to say that after that, the bond payments will be the same each year. I think that's really the point, is that once we get up to that point,
Okay, that's better.
Where are you? Which paragraph?
the third paragraph,
Okay.
Yeah,
the
'cause
second
that's what it
sentence.
means,
Oh,
right?
So
okay.
after that, the bond payments will be the same each year.
Okay.
That's better.
Did you want to include what Dr. Morse had mentioned earlier too about how the high school bond is retired and how that fits into the,
Let's hear.
That's noted
Does
in the
it say
fourth
that?
paragraph.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I missed that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's in the next paragraph right after, the fourth paragraph.
Okay.
It's in the fourth paragraph. When we're
Huh?
talking about high school.
Second
Oh, okay,
sentence.
I'm sorry, I
No,
didn't see
it's
that.
fine.
I just have one minor suggestion. First of all, very well done, Tom. Very well written, and I think much needed. The last paragraph, final sentence, I would just suggest replacing failing with substandard or something like that. We don't want to imply that the building has sort of been left to, I don't know, fall apart. We're maintaining it,
Yeah.
is my point.
And it is substandard in terms of class size.
It is substandard in
It's
terms
below-
of,
Below the standard.
yeah, being a modern education facility.
Okay, that's a good suggestion, yeah.
Can I take another crack at wordsmithing?
Kenny.
Okay.
I'll be-
So let's flip over.
Okay?
Okay. So you have the first paragraph goes, I want to stress. And then second one
You're
says.
to the top of page 2.
Yeah, okay. And then the second one, you say, I want to also stress. And then you're talking about the added, and you reference it in rejecting the bond. Another way maybe to write it, I write, please understand that not passing the bond will also have, I didn't work out that part, but to kind of flip it on that way, so not passing the bond will also result in costs to the community, and then you seg into the cost to maintain the middle school.
Keeping the current building also comes with a cost.
Right.
Please understand seems
Yeah.
odd to
Okay.
me.
Okay, that's fine. But something I think just to kind of state that is, and I think what Michael just said fits perfectly. Do you want to say that again?
Keeping the current building also comes with a cost.
Good.
I think that's perfect. And then you could have that second sentence about that the current middle school building has up to 10 to 12 million.
Yep.
And I think
Yeah,
adding
that
what
works.
Denise
I mean, it's-
said,
yeah.
that this is
It's a
just,
much more direct way of saying it.
Right.
Yeah. Others? Okay, could I have a motion then? And I think we talked about also sending this to the various town councils, or is that?
Yes, we'll send this to, you send this to the paper, I'll send it out to the council and the 2 select boards as well.
Okay. Denise?
I'd like to make a motion to finalize the letter with the edits that we discussed and to send it out to the newspaper and the various boards, community boards.
Moved by Denise, seconded by Dan. Further comments? All those in favor? 7 in favor. Thanks. Thanks for the editing.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're down now to the policies.
Okay. Policies.
Could I ask a question on
Yeah.
one policy and before
Yep.
you move them first sight?
That's fine.
In policy EEAEA, it's an alphabet there. And if we go to the second page, so the very end of the policy, and we're talking about drug testing in the policy, and I don't know, I just raised this, and I don't know if it's necessary, but in the way the current law has changed about the use of cannabis and that there is medically prescribed cannabis, and so people could legally have that, is it important to state in the policy so that our last line says, therefore, any personnel who have a confirmed positive test for drugs, and to add a line saying, even if you are legally, allowed, to have medical cannabis. I don't know if we need that or not.
Yeah, I would avoid that, Kenny.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know where you're headed, but I wouldn't add it.
I just wanted to protect us that someone said I'm allowed to do it or whatever. Okay.
I think that the legal references here already cover that the requirements, the bar for a bus driver or a commercial driver's license holder is higher than
Yes.
for the population at large in the law.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So do you want to move this?
Unless there's, I don't know if anybody else has any other questions about any of the other policies before I go.
I do. I have a question about EEA.
Okay.
So the portion that's being added here, I believe, is intended to codify current practice. And I wanted to clarify, my question is about the kindergarten to second grade section, where it says that the bus drivers will not drop off kindergarten, first, or second grade students without the presence of a responsible person as identified by the parent or guardian to receive them at the bus stop. There's no limit here on who that person, that responsible person designated by the parent could be. So that could be a neighbor, an older sibling, whoever.
Yep,
Okay.
that's exactly right. So they identify the person, they sign off that that's the person, then they've assumed the responsibility, that's who we're dropping off to.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Should it state there as well, the way it does in the 3rd and 4th grade, what happens to the child? In the 3rd and 4th grade, I think it says the driver will bring the student back to the school. And do we need to say that with the kindergarten and 2nd grade?
Yes, that is our practice, Kenny.
Okay.
So we could just remove the header, the 3rd and 4th grade procedure, because that applies to everything.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Or
Okay, right.
K4, yeah.
Yeah.
So just remove that heading.
I will tell you every year it's the one issue that the transportation director gets a lot of grief over. There are parents who want us to drop their child off without a responsible person present. We refuse, and it becomes a bit of a Donnybrook on the telephone sometimes. But Lisa has handled it extremely well, and we stick to our guns.
Okay.
Okay.
Denise, do
Go ahead.
you have another question?
I do have one more. At the top of this policy, under the responsibility paragraph, which is the second paragraph, the first sentence there is, parent/guardian is responsible for student until the student embarks and disembarks from the school vehicle. I don't think that is grammatically correct. I think that what we mean is that the parent or guardian is responsible for the student from the time that until the student boards the school bus and from the time they get off.
That's exactly right, Michael. So you think the rephrasing of that would be helpful?
Yeah.
And these are first reads, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
these are first
Okay,
reads,
yeah,
so
so
that's
with
fine.
these suggestions, just
Yeah, that's
come
fine.
back and
Yeah, Michael, can you say that again? Just so we capture the heart of it.
Well, so until the student embarks is fine, and after the student disembarks, I guess. It's not until they disembark, it's after they disembark, is the point.
Got
Oh,
it.
yeah, and until the student disembarks, right. So we're just adding the words "until the student" before the word disembarks.
Got it. Thanks.
No, not
No?
until.
No?
And it's after.
Oh,
The bus driver is responsible for the student until they disembark.
So, I mean, in essence, we're saying the parent is responsible for the child before they get on the bus and after they get off.
After-
That's a really
after
simple way.
After the student
Yes,
disembarks.
thank you, Al, yeah.
Got it, okay.
That's the
Okay.
point.
Okay, so we can change that for the next reading. Others?
Finish with bon voyage.
I'm good now, thank you.
God, you're sharp tonight, Michael.
okay, so with that, I'd like to motion to approve policy ECAF, audio and video surveillance on school buses, policy EEA, student transportation services, and policy EEAEA, mandatory drug and alcohol testing - school bus drivers for first read.
Moved by Denise, or second? Brian? Okay, all in favor? 7 in favor, these approved for first read. So I think we're down to the committee updates. The manifest committee met and reviewed the manifests.
Did you want to mention?
Oh, yeah, that will, like, our term of duty will be done, Brian's will be done the next meeting, so at the next meeting, we'll need to set up either another team. Dan suggests maybe at some point, maybe, we can look at whether we want to change the way we're doing it. So we may want to, early in the next term, decide whether we want to continue doing manifest this way.
Yeah, I could just briefly describe something we've talked about in the past, at least conceptually. It would be, I think, ideal for the entire board to have the opportunity to review a sort of a manifest summary as opposed to going through the physical documents. Some of us can't be here early to do it, and I mean, given the fiduciary responsibility, ideally, I would think the full board being able to sign off on it would be preferable, but it would require some sort of a summary documentation, and I'm not sure if,
Yeah.
what would be entailed in making that possible.
Yeah, my feeling would be like if we're going to go that direction, not do it right, to continue what we're doing now until we have something else in place.
Yeah.
So probably to put another committee, two-person committee together to start, the next term, and then if we want to determine a change, do it then.
Yeah,
Is
but
that,
it's something we've talked about before, we just haven't
done it.
actively
Yeah.
pursued it, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
advocating.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'm wondering whether, like you and Denise, like Brian and I will do it next time. You and Denise will take over the meeting after that.
Yep,
And
that's fine.
then
Yep.
until your term is done or until we change them. Okay, is that good? Other committee updates?
Just the sabbatical committee met and we're finalizing recommendations that will be brought to the board,
Great.
I think at our next meeting.
Do you know how many applications you have?
There were 3 applications that came in.
Okay, good. Good. Future meetings, as indicated. There's no non-public or no non-meeting, so I think we're ready for motion to adjourn.
Did we skip public comment, or are we?
I'm sorry, public comment, sorry.
Small item. Remember that the lighting and windows that you did in both elementary schools, that cost will be coming off after 7 years, which is only a few years out. And this building, I think the savings is over $100,000 a year since the commissioning was done. And of course, those costs will rise, the cost of the savings will rise, while the cost of the school will not. You nail the school down at this year's costs, and then the energy costs escalating over the next 25 years will make those costs actually a bigger savings.
Thank you.
I don't know if you had this in your answer, Dr. Morse, but the 14.7 million, I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't know what it is.
It's actually on the NewHampshire.gov site.
I can answer that. Thank you. I wrote it down. I apologize, Gary.
Okay, and then the other thing is, maybe I'm a little slow here, but when you say it's zero, zeroing out, I'm just doing the math. It says 2.9 million towards the bond by year 5. As I understand, the offset's 750K. So we got a $2.1 million delta. I don't know how that goes to zero. I don't know if you could clarify that.
Yeah, be glad to. So the money that's available for school construction, first of all, the district doesn't qualify for any federal school construction funds. The money that the state has for school construction is paying for schools that were approved when the state was still approving and supporting school construction. The state hasn't supported school construction, new school construction, in over a decade. So every time they make a payment, of course, like any bond, there's a little bit of money freed up. So that 14 point whatever money that you pointed out to, Darren, it is available, but it's being used for security, emergency, that kind of stuff. So you're absolutely right, that does exist, but it's not available for school systems to build schools. And going back to the math, all right? So what I'm saying is, in year 4 and 5, the middle school bond is paid for by the end of the high school bond. The high school bond money shifts over. That's why 4 and 5 would be a zero. To get to 2.1, the difference that you're talking about is the first year. So the first year we're hitting the $625,000. It's in the budget, ready for the community to support or not support. It's in our operating budget. So there's 625. It's the second year that we think is going to be around 1.1 million, right? So that gets us up to 1.7. Okay? And then that 1.1 million is offset by, assuming the board goes forward, with teacher retirement incentives, the emergency and trust funds, and so forth. So I answered that. So that's how that happens. So by the time we hit year 5, if the bond is around $3 million, over the course of the 5 years getting there, we will have incorporated those funds over that 5-year period. So when you hit 5 years, the bond is already in our operating budget. We've done it incrementally in order to make sure we're protecting the taxpayer from a giant spike in taxes. Alternative, just run the bond overnight, taxes go up 6-7% just on the school bond, add 3% for operating, teacher's contract, operating budget, et cetera, and you're fast approaching 8.5–9% in 1 year of increase in school taxes. That's what we were trying to avoid, trying to build it up incrementally each year, so by the time we hit year 5, the bond is built into the budget. It's no longer an issue because it's part of our operating budget. So it was an attempt by the board to just do this in increments as opposed to beating the taxpayer up overnight. I hope that helped. I'll be glad to talk to you afterwards, too.
Okay. So I think we are ready to adjourn at this point. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Moved by Michael, second by Brian. All in favor? Okay, we're adjourned.